I think it's fair to say that everyone has their favourite rigs. I know I do. So we're going to probe Mr. Ian McMillan, aka Ting Tong now. Very gently we're going to probe you about your favourite rig, because I believe this is it. If you grab the other end of that. Talk us through that. First of all, where you use it, where you don't use it.
If possible, I would prefer, I would use that everywhere I went.
Right.
If I could get away with it, if the conditions were right and the lake bed was right, but it's not, so...
Right, so tell us where you don't use it then. It's probably easier for people to work out.
If you look at the manor this year down in Essex, where it's covered in siltweed, horrible, slimy, gunky stuff.
Clings to everything.
If you put that in there, even though you would get a drop every time with the lead, you would really, in an hour later, be smothered.
Right, okay.
So it isn't the one for there.
For that particular lake?
For that particular lake and that particular sort of situation.
Right, okay.
But for here, clear bottom, or fishing in silt, anything like that,
clear
gravel.
spots amongst weed.
Yeah, it's fine for that.
Right.
Because the way I present my bait, it's got to be clean, really.
Right.
I don't want no silkweed, especially silkweed.
Right.
But I don't want no weed to kind of cling up on the rig.
Cling to everything.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Now this one obviously is tied up for fishing Gigantica, but we fished together a fair bit before, and what you've got on there is pretty much what I've seen you use at Linear.
Yeah.
At Welly.
Yeah,
you know, they're all versions on a theme.
Yeah.
So talk us through how to tie that then.
But it's a simple knotless knot. I use the silicone. I don't tend to use a ring that much.
Yep.
But I use the silicone to act as a blowback, but to keep the hair in place. So if I do get done, which I know we all do all the time, I'll know it's been spat out, because that will be back up.
Right.
Up
so basically, the silicone will be back like that, and then you know the rig's been played with.
Yeah.
So you know that something's gone on out there, basically.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. And that's just threaded on. I take it just threaded onto the hook link. Is that before the knotless knot or after?
That's before.
Right. Okay.
And then I get the point of the hook and I just curve it through the silicone.
Right. Okay.
And then obviously put the end of the hybrid soft back through the eye, whip your knotless knot.
Right.
And then obviously the shrink tube. These little babies, which, you know, they've only been out a short time, but however did I manage without them before?
We used putty, didn't you?
Because I'm such an OCD freak, I'd be like that, just
making sure you putty's
just right.
So. Yeah.
But yeah, so a couple of sinkers.
Right. Just to pin everything down.
Just to pin everything down.
And then down to a sort of quick change system. What have you got there?
We've all got there a little link loop.
Right. Okay.
A very small little quick link there.
Yeah. And then onto your hybrid lead clip. Now, going back to this, because I know you used to fish the hybrid soft with a loop knot, didn't you?
Yes.
And you have had that go a couple of times.
I mean, probably, if I could count in one hand, in what, 3 years? Well, ever since we've had the soft.
Right.
We got the first samples of the soft. Right. So, and I wouldn't like to think how many fish I've caught doing it that way.
Literally hundreds.
Yeah. But it was you that said to me, try the link loops.
Yeah.
And now I'm 1,000,000% more confident.
Right. Okay.
You know, because they do play on your mind sometimes, because it's user error. That's all it is. I don't believe it's the material that is inferior. I think it's a user error on the knot side of things.
You haven't tightened it down properly. It cuts through the coating.
It grabs.
Yeah.
And then a sudden jolt will cause it to go. So I think they're all user error, regardless of what people say. It's
nice to know you do listen, mate. Right, okay, going back to the lead system, we've got hybrid lead clip on there with a square pair. What's that, 3 ounces?
That's a 3, yeah.
Right, okay, and you're fishing at what sort of distance?
Well, I thought about 70, but you tend to disagree now.
I think it's about 90. Yeah, it's a little bit further than that.
But them, I'm happy to use them and have used them up to about 120 yards.
Really?
For me, again, that's the perfect lead.
Right.
It casts as far as, not as far as I ever want to cast, but in a normal fishing scenario, it will get me wherever I want to be.
Yep.
You feel the donk perfectly because all the weight's concentrated. You've got four flat sides.
Got a lot touching the bottom when the lead comes down.
Like I say, because it's so concentrated. I mean, I dread to think if you put a 5 ounce one of them on or a 4 ounce, you know, the fish are going to absolutely be frightened senseless when they pick that up. They ain't going to really get away with it, are they? So
no. And then just a simple safe zone leader.
Yep.
Which how would you tie that to the main line?
Palmer knot.
Right.
Or a grinner. 9 times out of 10 I use a grinner.
Right. Okay.
I have little phases on things, you know. Sometimes I'll go through a grinner phase and sometimes through a Palmer phase.
Just personal preference, what you're confident in. Yeah. And one thing I wanted to speak to you about in particular is the length of the hook link, because we know the lead's not plummeting into the bottom out there. The whole lot of that is laying on the surface of the lake bed. Yeah. So why a hook link as long as that?
Well, I'm boilie fishing. I haven't even bought a spod rod with me. Right, all I'm doing is boilie fishing. I'm creating an area. There's no features out in front of me, so I'm pulling them in or holding them, or they're here because there's bait here. I'm scattering it about. They're actively moving between baits.
Right, okay.
So I think a longer rig will work a bit better.
And the hook bait, what we got on there?
I've got a 20mm bottom bait cell.
Yep.
With a 10mm Indian Spice pop-up.
Right, and why are you using an Indian Spice pop-up?
Because the bailiff has caught loads of fish on it here. I will admit, we bought some over, didn't we, in June for the match. And I've never been big on green baits.
No, me neither. But on here, for some reason, they're working brilliantly.
Aren't he? Yeah. Danny has. So he said to me, I spoke to him last week, and he said, if you put one of them out in front of you, you will get a bite.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's worked.
Yeah.
Well, if you put it in the edge, it's lovely. It's nice. It's a nice little combination.
Yeah, it's just sitting just off the bottom, sort of, just like that, isn't it? So it's not floating or anything, but it's just standing upright. Yeah. Like that on the bottom. So a little bit of extra flavour, a little bit of extra colour.
Yeah,
and the old faithful cell as well. Okay, well that is Ian's Cast It Anywhere rig. He catches absolutely loads everywhere he goes. So if it suits your sort of fishing, get on it.
Look at that. 23.5 pound of gigantic magic. There's loads of them in here like this, all these scales. Absolutely stunning creature, mate, this one. Get on the long shank X's.